August 28, 1963, the Great Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. gave his I Have a Dream speech. And in that speech, Dr. King said the words, "I say to you today, even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, sons of former slaves and sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood." Dr. King gave his speech on the streets of Washington, where he called out for civil rights and economic rights. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was a phenomenal leader, bringing together 250,000 people. Good evening. My name is Kaitlyn Perkins, and I'm here this evening to speak to you on leadership. From the very beginning, I knew I wanted to host a volleyball camp. In need of a topic to go with my product, I took a moment to reflect on what I've learned from playing volleyball over the years. I have learned communication skills, good sportsmanship. I've learned how to motivate people and how to treat people. And most importantly, I've learned how to push people further than their own expectations, even when they did not want to be pushed. It was in that moment I realized through volleyball I have learned to be a leader. Leadership is big on the discussion board in my home, with both mom and dad holding manager positions, and leadership is a topic I am passionate about. The definition of leadership is stated as a procedure. It involves influencing, it takes place in a group environment, and leadership necessitates goal attainment. Even though all of us may not be destined to lead 250,000 people in a march to end racism, any of us can lead a group, team, or organization. No one should ever say, "I am not a leader." Just because a person does not give speeches, lead a franchise, or sit in that glorious corner office, he or she are in fact a leader or on their way to being one. Being a friend, or a neighbor, specifically a good one, makes a leader. Being a parent unquestionably develops leadership skills. Coaches and teachers are constantly leading their students and athletes. Even having siblings is an environment where leadership skills are likely to unveil. In order to take a set of individuals, influence them, and reach a common goal, a set of skills is required. The main components that contributed to Dr. King's success was he was wise, intelligent, and creative. Wisdom is taking one's intelligence, creativity, and experience he or she possesses and using it towards the common good. Intelligence is evaluating the standard of your ideas, and creativity is used to generate the ideas that others will follow. Dr. King was wise and intelligent because he did not leave his listeners mired in anger, fueled by the stories he told of inequality and injustice. Instead, he moved them to a positive emotional state by sharing his vision of equality. And Dr. King was also creative. He was creative in the sense he used the terminology creative tension in many of his speeches, which simply means in order to change, in order to have fairness, things must be shaken up. Being a leader. Successful leaders have to have a strong sense of character and good habits. People have the ability to generate or eradicate opportunities that come their way, and each of us are capable of doing that. Business leadership. For a company to exhibit any kind of success, there must be leadership. Team leadership. Recreation and athletic departments are important places for students and athletes to exhibit leadership skills. Coaches are constantly leading their athletes to perform at their highest level. There are positive results for coaches who place their athletes with other athletes who have different strength areas than their own. For me, volleyball has made a huge impact in my life, and it was something I knew I could effectively teach and coach. For me, volleyball has led me to where I am today. And knowing that I have a passion for working with children and an understanding that for a child that exhibits leadership skills at a young age, it'll better our future generations. And this led me to create my product. Leadership is very important in our youth because they will better our generations. For me, I want students and athletes to have the opportunity to learn volleyball at a low cost because for me, volleyball has gotten me to where I am today. Athletic departments are very important. That is where we push each other and we push our teammates. For my product, I held an elementary and middle school volleyball camp. My product took course over the course of 2 Saturdays. My intention of my camp was to host a volleyball camp at a very low cost so students had the opportunity to attend. And my goal for camp was to develop proper technique while learning leadership skills. My first Saturday was dedicated to my elementary athletes. This is my first and second grade group. I had my first and second graders for 4 hours. First and second graders are typically 6 to 8 years old. This is not very old and their attention spans are very short. Knowing this in advance, I incorporated lots of games to my schedule. That way we could keep camp moving and they did not get bored listening to me demonstrate drills and talking. My second session that day was my third and fourth graders. This was a group of 12 girls. This was a very enjoyable group for me because this is the group I got to jump in and play games with, and they are very coachable. These are my fifth and sixth graders. This was the following Saturday for my elementary camp. My fifth and sixth graders was my largest group with 16 girls. The second session of the following Saturday was my seventh and eighth graders. This is a group of 9 girls, and this is the group I was most excited for because I understood the skills they gained throughout my camp would transfer into playing at the high school level. I'm very thankful my senior project did not experience any major problems. The biggest challenge I faced was with my t-shirts. I set a deadline for the children to have their registration form in. That way I'd give my t-shirt guy plenty of time to have all 54 shirts finished for me. Even with a month's notice, they still came in the day of elementary camp. So while I was coaching my first and second grade group, my mother ran to West Plains for me and picked them up. In a hurry to get my t-shirts to the children, we never stopped and counted what we had. Turned out not all my t-shirts were there and many were the wrong size. So what we did was we put the children in oversized t-shirts. That way we could take group pictures. And when all my t-shirts were finally in, I hand-delivered them to the elementary and middle school classrooms myself. Although this is a very frustrating experience for me, I learned to take the good with the bad, to think on my feet and figure out a solution. In conclusion, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was a successful leader of the African American civil rights advancement in the United States. He was powerful and he used his power to influence the believers. Dr. King is no longer with us today, but his legacy will forever live on. I ask that each of you take a moment and think, where can I make a difference? Whether this be in your own classroom, in your workplace, on the court, or the field, think where you can make a difference. Next, visualize your success. See yourself getting there. And finally, take action. Each of us are capable of making a difference. Successful leaders' best quality is the fact that they can pull out the hidden talents in those they lead and push them to achieve greatness. If you think you can do a thing or think you cannot do a thing, you are in fact correct. Thank you. Do my judges have any questions?
Would you hold another volleyball camp in the near future?
In the near future, yes. So I will be playing volleyball in college, and we will be hosting a camp through Crowley's Ridge in June, on a Saturday in June, and I'll be one of the players that was picked to coach. So that's the nearest one. I do look to coach and teach in the future, and I think it's very important to have camps for younger kids. That way they start developing skills before they reach high school. And so I do look to coach camps in the future, and my nearest one will be in June.
Is there anything you would do different about your camp?
I would not have first and second graders for 4 hours, in all honesty. So each of my sessions was 4 hours. And like I said in my speech, first and second graders have very short attention spans. And my group was a bunch of best friends. So keeping them on task was a challenge. But overall, I was very thrilled with the results I seen. Many of my children were thrown in some frustrating games. And this was so they would learn the purpose of leadership. That way they would learn from each other and kind of take charge of the drills. I was kind of thrilled to see they were frustrated and weren't sure what to do the first time we did some of our games. That way the second time they're like, okay, I'm going to take over and here's how we do it. And that's where they really showed communication skills. And so I would probably have about a 2-hour session with each group because of how I split them up, because it was definitely difficult to keep the younger groups on task.
What do you feel like was the most important thing you learned from doing your camps?
The most important thing I've learned is probably treating people differently. And when I say that, I say treat people different but have the same respect overall, because what works for one person doesn't work for another. So if I tell one kid, hey, keep your head up, you're going to do fine, they're going to go for it. Others, it's going to take a little more. And others, you can be like, hey, don't do that. And they're like, okay, and they bounce off. And others, it's like, oh, you just got on to me, don't talk to me anymore. So I think treating people differently is what I took away the most, but still having the same goal for everybody and respecting everyone the same. Any other questions? Thank you.